Means of the following program are not owned by 93.5 FM KPPM LP.
All right, friends, we are back here on 93.5 KPPM, your community-minded station. And friends, let me share this with you. Again, I've shared with you all, or I tell you all, we are your community-minded station, and there is an event that is going on today. Royal Treatment over on 14th Avenue. Royal Treatment rather is having their 14th annual back to school supply drive. That is happening today. They're having free school supplies, hairstyles, and food will be provided. For more information, you can contact Miss Priscilla Sam. You can also schedule an appointment with her, 337-249-9595. And then they're located at 1501 Opelousas Street. So I did want to make sure that I did share that with you. Oh, and also I believe that they will be at our back to school giveaway happening this Sunday from 2 to 4 p.m. We'll be doing backpacks, school supplies, free haircuts, hairstyles, a live DJ, free food, free drinks. And big shout out to all of our sponsors. Too many to go through right now because we've got a very special moment to get to. And so I want to make sure that we do talk about this and get into this because I've had some of you kind of ask me the question. And so I want to go ahead and dive into it. You've been asking me about Mr. Marshall Simien and his platform. And so we're getting into the platform now. We've been actually already in the platform,
yeah, somewhat.
And so we're just going to dive a little bit deeper into it now. And so, Attorney Simien, and how are y'all doing this morning?
We're doing
Good. Perfect. Yeah.
Good. Well, let's go ahead and dive right on into this. Let's talk about your ideas, your platform behind housing. We know that housing here in Lake Charles is a big deal. We know that there is not enough housing right now. We've got a lot of vacant housing. We've got just quite a few issues in the housing department. So let's kind of start with your ideas on housing.
Well, I'll give the generic overview and then break down into very specific stuff. So some people may get bored with it, but it's the world that we live in.
Yes, sir.
The housing stock in a lot of the parts of Lake Charles, most of the northern and central part of Lake Charles is getting older now. Some of it's antiquated based upon what we're doing now. But I talked last week about a donut hole developing where a lot of places just starting to empty out. And I think those places need to have very value to be reclaimed and rebuilt because you've already got infrastructure in these places. You've got streets, you've got electricity, you've got drainage, you've got sewer and water. So instead of those places becoming blighted, I think that's an opportunity to come back in and reimagine and refix those places and rebuild. So part of what I'm looking at in my housing platform is how to regenerate these communities. And we were in Chicago this past weekend on a trip with my son and my daughter, and we saw some of the housing that was reimagined in some of the places before, and they've done a really good job there, and other urban areas too. And I think we need to just catch up over here. But also the way that we build, not just in those areas, but the way that we build housing throughout this area needs to be reimagined. I think we need to do some things that's going to build. There's a national standard for housing that's called fortified gold. You see it a lot in Alabama. And I'd like to see that kind of housing done here because what it does, it builds housing that's more resistant to these natural elements that we're dealing with. But the other benefit of it is that it also brings down the insurance rates. You've seen where the economy is, there's some concerns about the economy, and they said the feds are going to start cutting interest rates to get people back into the affordability of housing. But in our area, unfortunately, you can afford a house now, but you may not be able to afford the homeowner's insurance because the insurance rate. So what I'm going to talk about today is going to address both issues: the affordability of housing, but also how to keep those insurance rates down and to build fortified housing without that cost being passed on to increase the price of housing, but how the government and programs that the city run can actually help make that happen.
All right. Well, so let's dive right into it then. Let's talk about fortified multifamily gold, and what that looks like, as far as fortified foundations and all those different things. How does that kind of look?
Well, fortified gold is a national standard that starts, and the whole concept is to how do you keep the building itself where it reinforces itself so any stress that comes against it is distributed. I mean, you see, and I'll give you an example. When you build a bridge, you have a number of pillars holding the bridge so that when all that weight comes across the bridge, it's not sitting on one particular area, it's distributed across the area. Same thing happens with fortified housing. And what happens is, for instance, like when you're building a house from the foundation up, inside the slab, you put in a short steel beam. It's a steel beam that's in the slab. It has a couple of holes in it. Then wherever your major weight-bearing components are in your house, where the studs start coming up, you put multiple studs, and it's a really heavier stud, but it's bolted into that steel beam so that whenever some load comes against that house, the beams are held together by that steel beam, and the steel beam is held together toward with the slab. So I mean, it'd have to be like the Wizard of Oz. You'd have to really blow the whole house up off the slab to get it out of there.
Yeah.
But as you come up with those beams, then after that, once you start putting the trusses in that holds the attic and everything, you put hurricane straps, and those straps are meant to not just nailing it in, but also strapping everything in so that any wind that comes or whatever comes against that house is being pulled, it's going toward the beam, and all that energy is going down toward the bottom. And the final thing is when you build the roof has to be, the roof takes the biggest component. I mean, that's where people get the most damage. Either the roofs fly off, or they open, or whatever else, and water comes into a home. So
Right.
one of the things that the fortified construction does with it, and this is, when I say fortified gold standard, it's not just a standard for builders, it's a standard that the insurance industry recognizes, so that when they're rating a house to see what the premiums are going to be, they can see what type of risk that house has. So to give you an example, a lot of people build with these, I call them gable roofs, where the roof is basically like a pyramid. And those things, they're like a sail in a sailboat. They take a lot of wind, and there's a lot of energy that comes against those. The hip roofs, we have that in our house, hip roofs. The hip roofs kind of slope down on all sides. And to give you an example, it's almost like if you're driving an 18-wheeler in a windstorm. I mean, the 18-wheeler's got a lot of wind pushing against it. That's those gable roofs. But the hip roofs are like driving a sports car. You know, you're driving a Maserati in a windy area, you're not feeling that much wind because the wind is kind of pushing over it. So what happens is the wind load is reduced on that roof in the first place. So that takes a lot of the stress off. And then it curves around the roof, which is what you really want. And when it curves around the roof pitch reduces that kind of stress and the wind speed that causes uplift. Because what also happens is not only does the wind blow against the house, but the wind can get underneath and start lifting on the house. And when it lifts on the house, that's when you start seeing houses fall apart. On the Community Foundation, we're dealing with a lot of those type of resiliency things as part of our Just Imagine plan. And there was a video of a house that was inside of a wind tunnel. They built a normal stick-built house, and they built one that was fortified gold. And they put the wind speeds, and you literally saw the wind house just blow apart. I mean, really blow apart. I mean, like a tornado had hit it. And meanwhile, the fortified house it didn't even lose a lot of shingles. I mean, the repair costs were less, the downtime costs were less, everything that people had in there were protected. So my housing platform is to say that the most important investment that we make is where we live and where we lay our head, because that's where our families are. And those are the places that you want to protect. Even if you evacuate during a storm, you want to be able to come back to a home that's habitable, that you can start rebuilding your life. So those are some of the things that come through. And to show you that this is not, just a concept, there's HRI Properties is building houses in off the Hodges Street area. They're building certified multifamily gold, and if you ever get a chance, you can see in there. If they haven't closed in the walls yet, you'll actually see the steel beam that's in the slab, and then the wood beam that's actually bolted to the steel beam, and all the straps throughout. So that's going to be multifamily housing, but it's going to be very resistant to any type of stresses.
Okay, and I know exactly which houses or what you're talking about there. I just passed by those the other day.
Sure.
And so I definitely can see how that may become beneficial, or not may, but would be beneficial
Oh, yeah.
in the event of another storm, which, as you said the other day, these are no longer 100-year events or once in a lifetime. I mean,
It happens
you know,
regularly.
thankfully we haven't had one yet this year,
Yeah.
and we're a good ways through hurricane season. However, I mean, we still need to be prepared because it may not be this year,
Yeah.
but it could be next year, 2 years. You know,
And we're still early in the sweet spot of hurricane season. I mean, August and September is usually when what you can see is 100 degrees out there now.
absolutely, yeah.
We're in the shooting gallery right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess the question that arises is I know this is a part of your platform, but this is what you would become to make the standard of housing for the city.
I'd like to, but you know, the other side of that is once you put those kind of requirements in, that it increases the building costs. You know, because
Okay.
and it may not be total increase of the building cost, but the builders, if they perceive that something's going to build the cost up, they're going to pass that on to the consumer. So the problem that you run into there is, wait, do you make housing so expensive to build it that way that is unaffordable for people to have? Well, one of the things that the city does, the city has a home program. The home program uses HUD funds.
Mm-hmm.
Now, HUD has a number of different areas that come in. Our city uses, I think the amount of HUD funds or HUD programs that we utilize as a city, we underutilize compared to what other municipalities do. So my administration would be more about getting hiring a consulting company that actually, that's all they do is go out there and find HUD programs that fit in HUD funds. There's a gentleman who was over Region 6 of HUD during the Obama administration. When he left, he started a consulting program. I've done some work with him before, and he's very good at identifying the programs and doing this. Now, under Section 92206 of the Home Program, HUD funds are available to help encourage, incentivize, and subsidize the building of these types of homes. So if the city had a program that said, look, if you start builders out there, and this is the private sector building, not the city building homes, but if you go and start building to this standard, we have funds available that we would come in and help offset those costs so that you don't have to pass that on to the owner. Homeowner gets a fortified home at regular cost, and those costs are absorbed by the HUD funding that we get normally. And that program is already in place with the Community Foundation because we already had some hurricane funds that were put in place. And for instance, Project Build a Future is about to build a community across from Fondale Elementary.
Mm-hmm.
And we've allocated, they're building the first 4 homes. We've allocated, I think, about $25,000 per home to offset those costs to make that a fortified home. So if we can put that sweet spot in place, get a good mix of where we can get the fortified building, but also find funds to help make sure that doesn't increase the cost of housing to our residents, then that's a net zero gain. So that helps them. And the other way that they're going to benefit is once they go and get homeowners insurance with a fortified home, that should drive their rates down because the state in Baton Rouge, what they've been doing is basically paying insurance companies to keep writing policies in Louisiana. I think that's not a good policy. I think the insurance companies, that's not what drives them. I think if you can take that money and put that and say, look, we're reducing your risk because now we've got fortified homes, I think that's when you start telling the insurance companies you need to start reducing your rates.
Right. And so I see the benefit of how this could help the city as a whole, especially once you have housing, and then there's the HUD that helps to subsidize and even incentivize some of this. But I guess my next question becomes, as you well know, in this city we have kind of a flooding issue due to drainage and other things. And what would be the issue, or what would be the resolution to keep us from having, I mean, we build these nice houses, but then yet it still floods, How do we offset that?
But James, the irony is back in 2017 when I ran, I addressed it. I said, when you look at water, flooding, flooding is a basic principle of how do you move water from one place to another before it does any damage. So back then I talked about building, the municipalities building retention ponds. If you go to like the Walmart on Ryan Street, you'll see a retention pond where it's required that they put a retention pond because they got these big old giant parking lots. You can't put that on a homeowner and say, look, the whole neighborhood needs to build a retention pond. So I said, if you go to major metropolitan areas, they have these big old giant areas, look like parks. And they're parks, but you see two big old giant pipes, and you never could figure out what those are for. Well, those parks are actually retention ponds, and when they have heavy rain events in these subdivisions, they close the park down and it holds the water in those areas until the municipal system can catch up, so they don't overwhelm the municipal system. So I talked about that back in 2017, and the police jury was listening to it. So by Louisiana Avenue by McNeese Street, Contraband Bayou runs back there. It's a little ditch, but they call it Contraband Bayou. But it flooded a bunch of the homes back there for years. Well, the parish went in and it's a 17-acre retention pond. At first, people were saying, we don't want that in our neighborhood. But I think that they're starting to realize that, look, it's not a blight. Those are actually going to have walking trails, a park area, and everything else. But we've had a number of rain events since they put that in there. And I know a few people that live in that area, and they were just astounded and said, man, we don't have any more flooding that happens. That's because all of that water can go into that 17-acre pond instead of into people's homes. And as the municipal system catches up, it drains it out. Now, the benefit to that, too, is that, you have your homeowner's insurance, but a lot of people have to get flood insurance, too.
Yes, right.
And that's based on risk. So if the city and the parish are working together to put municipal ponds in different areas that's going to capture a lot of the water, then we can get ahead of the flood insurance issue and help our congressional delegation have better leverage when they go and say, look, your flood insurance rates are too high for our region. Our people aren't flooding out because we've actually figured out how to manage the water in our areas.
So it seems as though, if we can get good, resilient homes into these areas, also, and this is something that I've been talking about. I mean, me and my wife have these conversations. Also, think ahead of time about how we would address, while we're building these homes, how will we address flooding? Oh, let's build a retention pond. I think, like you said, it has overall long-lasting benefits. And so as we talk about housing here, folks, I want you all to listen to the candidate, Mr. Marshall, or attorney rather, Marshall Simien. He is laying out for you just a bit of his platform as it relates to housing.
And James, there's one more component I left out, because a lot of people would say, well, this is dealing with new construction and that's fine and dandy, but I'm in my home, I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not ready to build a new house.
That's a good point.
How does that help me?
Yeah.
Well, the HUD funds I identified that goes into resiliency, those are also into rehabilitating homes. You've seen homes already where they're actually lifting whole slabs up to get them out of flood zones and everything else, but those funds can also be targeted towards rehabilitating homes. So the city, I'll work with the consultants to make sure we identify the funds and we comply with them. And then as a city, we need to come together with a program that works not just to help incentivize the builders to build resilient homes, but for the people that actually have existing homes I'm pretty sure the insurance rates are just shocking, to go in and rehabilitate those homes so that they can meet those kind of requirements and get those rates down.
That'll work. Friends, I say it all the time, the man with the plan, but I also want to add in that, here's a man who seems as though he has done his homework, all right? He has researched it, he has looked into it. I mean, he was able to tell you that this is kind of used in Alabama, and it's primarily used in Alabama right now, and anything about Alabama, they get hit with some storms and all that kind of stuff. When all that stuff goes through, maybe New Orleans, all that, it sweeps and goes through Alabama, all that, or it'll hit the Gulf Shores and hit, Alabama, Florida, all of that. And so he's kind of already looked at what has been tested, what has worked. And so I want to encourage you all, share this video with your friends. We are live right now on Facebook. Will go up on YouTube later in the day, and so you'll be able to kind of check this out. You'll be able to share it with somebody, and if you know somebody who, and then we all know somebody who needs to vote in this election, and you want them to, because we all need to vote. That's why I say it that way. But we all need to be aware of what's going on and who we're voting for. Let me encourage you to check out who is here at the station. And right now, I have none other than Attorney Marshall Simien. He's laying out his plan for you step by step. And I appreciate, let me say this before I turn it over to your wife, I appreciate that you're taking your time with it. I mean, there's so many times, because of whatever the case may be, folks will come in and they'll just rush through, and people just got to get it in a quick little bite. But you're giving us time to hear your heart, your voice, your research, and then to digest it and to go with it. So thank you for doing it this way.
And James, these are important conversations because, we are literally dealing with, like I said before, we've had about 20,000 people that have been displaced. We just cannot afford to keep, when the human condition has to be addressed,
Absolutely, and absolutely. Well, I mean, your husband has been laying it out. What do you think?
He's the man with the plan. And I say that because he has lived it.
Yes.
He's lived it. If it's the education, if it's being in all those offices, having to deal with the hurricanes, the recovery, housing, rebuilding, he's lived it.
Yeah.
And he started not even here. He started really back in Mandeville because Marshall was the president of our homeowners association back in the late 90s. We had capital campaigns then, and as a young man, they voted him in and did some marvelous work in Mandeville. And being in Mandeville, you understand, they took maybe a chance on him, but people loved him there. Everywhere Marshall has walked, he's made that journey successful with God. But he knows how because he has the experience, he has the education, he has the business knowledge. Put it all together, and this is what you get. It's not just information and just research, he's lived it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's lived it.
Yeah.
And so housing is an issue that's important to everyone. And with Marshall as your mayor, he's going to be concerned about everyone having a voice, north, south, east, and west, to build a fortified city. If you have some concerns, SimienForMayor.com. Use your voice. Don't sit on the fence and don't bicker. It's time to use your voice. He's approachable. Put on a pot of coffee and invite him to talk to you and your friends, but just don't sit. Use your voice. He's saying to you he wants to represent you and your family. So take advantage of that.
There you have it. There you have it. I don't think I could have said it any better. And thank you also, because I have it up on the screen, but I didn't say it out loud. Be sure to check out that website, SimienForMayor.com, or check him out on social media, Elect Marshall Simien.
Yep.
And so you can catch him on all of those platforms and the website. You can ask questions on the website. You can contact them. You can support. And do you guys have anything coming up or anything we want to talk about? I just want to make sure I give that opportunity.
Not yet. We just finished a fundraiser, so we're retooling where we're going to go with this. I want to start having community meetings because now it's time to get our folks together all over the city and start talking about what's their concerns. I want to hear from everyone to see what's going on in your neighborhood that I should be concerned about, that I can address, because I don't have all the answers. I'm just like I said, I'm a good collaborator. Once people come to me and say what they have, we start moving from what's the problem to what's the solution, and we can get a lot accomplished.
Absolutely, absolutely. Friends, you've been listening to the voice of Attorney Marshall Simien. And thank you for bringing your wife in with you. I mean, I know y'all are a team, and so thank y'all both for being here on today.
Thank you.
And friends, keep it locked. You're tuned in to I Am Encouraged Radio here on 93.5 KPPM. And remember that this will be rebroadcast tonight at 5:15, right here on your community, your award-winning community-minded station, 93.5 KPPM. Keep it locked. All right, we are clear.
Yep.
Great.